In this video, I'm going to show you how I set up stop loss and take profit levels in my backtest. This is a follow-up to my previous tutorial about setting up a basic backtest, so if some of this doesn't make sense, then watch that video first. I'll leave a link for it. I've written out some of the initial code just to get started. I covered this already in my previous tutorials, so I'm going to quickly run through it now as a reminder. I begin by importing some of the libraries that I'm going to be using, so that's pandas, matplotlib to plot out the data, yfinance to download data from Yahoo Finance, and pandas TA for calculating technical analysis indicators. If you don't have pandas TA installed, then you can install it from your command prompt by typing pip install pandas_TA. After that, I'm going to download some price data for the S&P ETF SPY for a period of 1 year, and the interval is going to be on a daily time frame. I'll come back and fetch more data later on, but for now, this will get us started. In the next code block, I calculate my fast and slow moving averages. You can change them by just modifying these two variables, but I'm going to use 9 and 21 to begin with. And after that, I'll plot out my close price as well as the fast and slow moving averages. This is just 1 year's worth of data, but it helps to visualize so I can see the crossovers happening. Now I can start getting into the backtest itself. So I'll create a new code block down here, and I will generate my trade signals. So inside my price data frame, I will have a new column called signal. And for this, I have to actually define some trading rules. The focus of this video isn't the strategy, it's the backtest. So I'm going to keep it simple and just look for a crossover between the fast and the slow moving average. I'm going to go long only. So whenever the orange line crosses above the green line, that's going to be a trade signal. I can check for that by comparing price fast MA and making sure that it's greater than price slow MA. But this will just tell me when the fast moving average is above the slow moving average. It's not going to give me crossovers. For a crossover to be true, I need the fast MA to be below the slow MA first and then cross above it. So I need a second condition. I'm going to wrap this one in brackets and then add a second condition. This time I'm going to shift both of these by 1. So now I'm looking at the previous row. And in the previous row, the fast moving average needs to be less than the slow moving average. That gives me my trade signals. So then I can start moving on to my stop loss and take profits. Typically for stop losses, I use ATR. So I actually need to calculate my ATR first. This is the average true range. The ATR will be calculated using the TA library that I just imported. So I call ta.atr. And in here, I just say length is equal to 14, which is a default period for the ATR calculation. So let's just see what that looks like. If I run all of my code and output my price data, I now have my fast and slow moving average, the signals, and the ATR. Now I can calculate the stop loss. So I create a new column here called SL. The trades are going to be taken at the open of the candle. So my stop loss will be calculated from that open price. I take my open, and then I subtract the ATR from that price. However, there is an issue with this that's not immediately obvious. If I bring up my chart, let's say I want to enter on this big green candle here. So this is where I enter on the open. If I try to use the ATR on that candle, I can get the value from here. The problem is that this ATR isn't calculated until the candle has closed. So when the candle has just opened, this value is not available. So I need to be using the ATR from the previous candle to calculate the stop loss for the current candle. What that means for my code is that I actually need to shift this by 1. This might seem quite minor, but it's actually very important because it's easy with backtest to add in bias. So if I hadn't shifted by 1, then I would be using data that isn't actually available at the time of the trade. So I would inadvertently be introducing look ahead bias. Now that I have my stop loss, I can define a take profit. But before that, I need to work out the actual size of that stop loss. And that is going to be my open price minus my stop loss price. With that calculated, I can now take a take profit. So my TP is going to be also taken from the open price. And to that, I add the stop size. Now I have my signals and I have my stop loss and take profit. However, this isn't quite finished because the trade is taken on the candle after the signal is generated. So I need a new column called trade, which just takes my signal column and it shifts it by 1. So let's run this and see what it looks like now. I've got a bigger data frame and I have my stop loss, take profit, and trade column. because I'm using shift, the very first trade is actually invalid. So I need to make sure that I assign a value to that to avoid any errors later on. So I'll set my trade at index 0 to be equal to false. And rerunning it now, you can see that that's cleared that value. So now they should all be either true or false values. And I can actually filter that by saying price and then putting price back into the brackets and searching for trade. So this gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trade signals for that price data. Now I've set everything up, I can get into the backtest proper. It will break down into a few separate sections. The first one is where I define the starting variables. I'll need a way of tracking these, so I'll say trades underscore list is equal to an empty list, and then I'll define a flag which will be trade open, and I will set it to false to begin with. The next section is where I actually work through my data row by row. So I'll add a comment to say iterate through data. I will use a for loop for this, and I'll say for I, row in price.iter rows. And this will go row by row, checking for specific conditions. The first condition I want to check for is whether I can actually take a new trade. And I can only take a trade if I don't currently have one open. So if not trade open, then I look for trades. I'll add a comment here that says generate trade. And the way I know whether to take a trade or not is based on this column here. So if the value is true, then a trade is open. Because I'm iterating through the data row by row, all of the information is inside this row variable. I can then say if row.trade is equal to true, then a trade can be opened. So I'll take a few bits of information about that trade. I will need the entry date, which is the I variable, and that's the index. I'll then also need the entry price, which is row.open, because the trades are always opened at the open price. Then I'll get my stop loss, which is row.sl, my take profit, which is row.tp, and then I can set that variable trade open to true because I now have a trade. So then I continue through this loop, and the next section of this loop monitors open trades. So I'll add another comment to say monitor open trade. This time I need to check if a trade is open. So if trade open is equal to true, then I need to check for the stop loss or take profits being hit. And that's going to be dependent on the low and high prices. So I have to get the low from row.low, and I have to get the high in the same way. Once I have both of those, I check for stop loss and take profit. Typically, I will check the stop loss first to give me a more conservative result. For the stop loss to be hit, I just need to check if the low price is less than or equal to my stop loss. Then I can say that the exit price is equal to that stop loss. And I can also close the trade by saying trade open is now equal to false. However, there is a problem with that code, which is that price will sometimes gap down. So if my stop loss was somewhere here, but the price actually gapped, then I need to take this price down here as the exit, not the stop loss. To account for that condition, I add an extra check in here. I say if row.open is less than or equal to the stop loss, which basically means that there's been a gap, then my exit price is going to be the open of that candle. But otherwise, everything is okay and the stop loss is hit as normal. So the exit price is left as the stop loss. The take profit is done in pretty much the same way. So I can just copy this down and modify it slightly. So this time the comment becomes check take profit. Instead of the low, I'm checking for the high, and I want that to be greater than or equal to the take profit value. And again, I need to check for gaps. I'm still checking for the open, but it has to be above the TP value. And if it is, the exit price will be the open of that candle. Otherwise, the exit price is the take profit level. Now I'm almost done with this section. I've got my stop loss and take profits done. The last thing to do is to actually track the closed trades. So inside of this same section, within this if statement, I'm going to add another if statement, or first I will add a comment to say process closed trade. And the if statement will be if not trade open, which will seem a bit strange at first because it's inside this trade open is true. However, it activates as soon as one of the trades is closed. So when this variable becomes false, this section of code will then be triggered. And here I can record the exit side of the trade. So I need the exit date, which is I already have my exit price that's defined in these sections above, and I calculate my profit and loss. So the P&L is going to be the exit price minus the entry price. Once I have this, I need to store all of these trades so that I can track all of them together. So I'll add another column here that will say store trade data in a list. The trade variable is going to be a list that contains all of the information about the trade. So it will be the entry date, the entry price, and then the same for the exits. So the exit date, exit price, and the profit and loss, the P&L. Once that's done, I now have my trade. I need to add it into the trades list. So I'll append that individual trade into it. That was a little code. So let me just run this and check for any errors. Okay, it ran okay, but there's no output. So I add another code block down here, and let me just see this trades list if there's anything inside of it. So this gives me a list of lists. It has the information on each of the trades, but it's not very readable. Instead, I want to format this as a pandas data frame. I will add a new variable called trades, and I'll call PD for pandas data frame. The input for this is going to be the trades list that I'm just generating, and then a list of column names. These column names will match up with the variables in here. So I'm not going to type them all out again. I'm just going to paste them in here. But the list basically has all the same information. So it's the entry date, the price, the exit date and price, and the profit and loss. They need to be in the same order as they are inside of this list. Then I can output my trades data frame. And now it looks a bit nicer. For each of my 5 trades, I have the entry and exit information, and I have the profit and loss. One thing that's missing is the account balance. This doesn't show me how the balance has changed over time. So inside of my backtest, right at the beginning, I will define another variable, which will be called balance. And this will be set to, well, let's just say 1000. I also need a list called balance history. And this will just be an empty list for now, but this is where I will track the balance over time. As soon as a trade is closed, which is down here, and I calculate the profit and loss from it, I can now update that balance and say the balance is increased or decreased by the profit and loss. And then lastly, inside the for loop, so I just need to indent it once, I have to track that balance. So the way this is done is by taking the balance history list and appending the balance to it. Regardless of whether there's a trade or not, I'm going to make sure that this history is constantly being updated. I can also track this inside of my trades. So every time the trade is closed, I will also record the balance at that time. Since I've added a new value to this list, I need to make sure that I add a new column to my data frame, which will be called balance. So I rerun everything again, and this time I have a new column here that tracks that balance. However, this doesn't actually account for position sizing at all. It effectively just buys 1 unit of the ETF every time. So back in my backtest code, I will define some more variables. This one is going to be risk per trade, and it's going to be 0.02 or 2%. And I can use that to calculate how much I want to risk each time a trade is opened. So once I have my stop loss and take profit, I will add a comment here that says calculate position size based on risk percentage. I'll create a variable called risk amount, and that will be based on this running balance that I'm now tracking multiplied by the risk per trade, the 2%. So each time a trade is opened, I calculate 2% of my balance, and that is the amount I can risk. I can then work out the position size from that by saying risk underscore amount divided by my entry price minus my stop loss. So basically the size of the stop. Now that I know how big the position is, every time the trade is closed and I calculate my profit and loss, I can multiply it by that position size. And to make sure that I'm also keeping track of it, I will add it into my trade list. So I'll add position size in here and make sure that I update the data frame columns as well. So just before profit and loss, I will add a new column name called position underscore size. I run all this again, and now I have an updated data frame which gives me the profit and loss per trade, the position size, and the running balance. Because I'm working with only a year's worth of daily data, I only have 5 trades here. I will expand that to include more data, but for now, let's just plot this out so we have at least some kind of chart to show the balance. I'll say plt.plot. For the x-axis, I will use the index of my data frame, and for the y-axis, I will use my balance history. And then I'll just say plt.show. That gives me my profit and loss or my balance curve. It doesn't really give that much since it's only 5 trades. But now I can go back up to the top where I'm actually defining that period and change this to something more substantial like 20 years. I rerun this now. And this time I have an updated balance curve. Doesn't look that great, but now I have a lot more trades. So from 5 up to 116. And this is the first pass. So the stop loss and the take profit are very rigid, but at least they work. The next thing I want to do is actually add a bit more flexibility to the stop loss and the take profit. The way I do that is by adding a couple of variables up here. The first one is the ATR multiplier, which I will set to 1. And the second one is the TP ratio, which I will also set to 1. Now, when I calculate my stop loss, I will wrap this in brackets and I will multiply it by that ATR multiplier. I'll do the same thing with my take profit. So my stop size is multiplied by the TP ratio. Now you will have noticed that because I've set them both to 1, nothing will actually change. I will still get the exact same result. However, now I can tweak them a lot easier. So let's say I want a bigger stop loss to give the trade a bit more room to breathe. I can set this multiplier to 2, and then let's say I want to go for a bigger profit, and I will aim for a 2-to-1 ratio on all of my trades. If I rerun this now, the results are completely different. And the point of this video isn't to try and develop a profitable strategy. It's more about developing the framework for testing. So now I have various parameters that I can easily modify, such as the stop size, the take profit ratio, but also the fast and slow moving averages. By playing around with these numbers, I can very quickly test a whole bunch of different trade parameters and see what that does to the results. The one downside to this method is that using this approach to iterate through a data frame can be slow, especially if it's a very large data set. It's possible to do this much faster using NumPy, and I'll talk about that in a different video. If you found this one helpful and you want to say thanks, then please leave a like and let me know in the comments what other tutorials you might want to see.